Mandalorian as a show is having trouble finding its way. As a deep lore nerd who's watched every minute of everything Star Wars on Disney Plus, from the movies to the shorts to the behind the scenes to all the animated series, I'm really, frankly, enjoying Season 3 of The Mandalorian. I love the deep cuts to obscure references, the connective tissue between the prequel trilogy, the animated shows, all of it, all the way straight through to the sequel trilogy. But what they have lost is what I might call finesse in making these connections for the common fan, and as a result, they may be losing the money-spending, merch-buying, Star Wars' cool public who've only seen the movies and watched Mando on Disney+. They are what some call normies, and are what the business part of Star Wars is clearly focused on. Season 1 of The Mandalorian benefited from and exploited so many things that made it unique. It was the first time a Star Wars story was told on television. It was one of the flagships of Disney's new streaming service, and the title character was interesting and mysterious. It featured subtle, yet recognizable callbacks to the Star Wars cinematic universe, and of course, it also was the introduction of the cultural phenomenon known as Baby Yoda. Sure, the acting was over the top and a few of the episodes felt a little bit isolated, but it couldn't lose, and it didn't. Star Wars was back. Grogu was on t-shirts everywhere, and even the sequel haters were back on board. Then Season 2 came along and handled some important heavy lifting, and it did so effortlessly. They introduced characters and concepts with deep backstories from other media and made it simple to understand. Even though nerds like me knew who they were, Bo-Katan was just some other Mandalorian that made Din question his creed, and Ahsoka was this mysterious Jedi who once knew a creature like Grogu. The Darksaber was the weapon of the leader of Mandalore, and it needed to be won in combat. And all these concepts were easy to grasp, and if you wanted more info, you could get it. Most importantly, Season 2 built the audience's connection to Din, Djarin, and Grogu. When Mando had to make the choice of letting his foundling go with a Jedi Master that only the audience knew was Luke Skywalker, it was heartbreaking. In a way, that was the end of The Mandalorian. The show really could have ended there. The mission was complete. Both Grogu and Din had grown and they changed, and the book really could have been closed. Now, I have been a staunch supporter of the new era of Star Wars television storytelling, being essentially one giant story. I initially and vocally had no issue with Grogu and Din being reunited as part of the Book of Boba Fett show. It was odd, but it was also the first indication that all Disney Plus Star Wars is required watching, and to some, that was also maybe the beginning of The Mandalorian losing its way. As we've traversed the first 6 episodes of Mandalorian Season 3, the reunion of Mando and Baby Yoda was clearly the closing of their story. They are now a committed father-son dynamic, but they are no longer the center of the show, named The Mandalorian. And listen, I totally get it. The Mandalorian may never have been meant to be Din. I was a big supporter of the Mandalorian as Grogu theory since way early on. And I've said it before in a video that we did back in 2022 that Lucasfilm/Star Wars has a marketing problem right now. The story they're telling is no longer the lone wolf and cub in a galaxy far, far away. They've shifted gears from telling a small personal story to setting the stage for an epic galactic struggle that features the end of the New Republic and the rise of the First Order. Imagine if the third act of The Sound of Music was showing the political impact of World War II, leaving the Von Trapp family to really watch it from the side. It may be a very interesting story, but the viewer's expecting family values, difficult personal decisions, and of course, memorable songs. Doe, a deer, a female deer. And to be clear, there is nothing at all wrong with telling the story. In fact, it's a welcome one that fills in some of the gaps created by the sequel trilogy. But there are a handful of reasons why this is problematic for the show and Star Wars as a whole right now. Disney Plus has trained people what to expect from The Mandalorian. The mysterious bounty hunter turned father wrestles with his upbringing and the world that he wants to make for his son. And the son is an adorable alien that coos and gets into trouble and struggles with wanting to please his father. All of this set in the fantastical Star Wars universe. But honestly, we haven't really gotten that this season. We're now into something else, maybe the return of Mandalore or the rise of the First Order. Both are great concepts, and frankly, what we're actually seeing right now is that. And that's okay. But, and this is what I was alluding to at the start, the average fans, the ones with the Disney Plus subscription so they can watch Disney classics or MCU content, or because it was part of the Hulu package, they fell in love with Grogu and Din. This is no longer their show. The average Star Wars fan has never watched a minute of Clone Wars or Rebels, and they might not care. The viewer who got hooked on Mando wants Mando and Baby Yoda. Star Wars nerds like me want Mando, but we love the payoff to years of content consumption. It pains me to say it, but the average subscriber, the vast majority of them, they just want fun Star Wars, not necessarily tribal politics and the return of fascism to the galaxy far, far away. In fact, if you remember, the first complaint against The Phantom Menace was that it was based on galactic politics. An extension of this problem is, will the average fan care enough to watch the Ahsoka series that we can assume is being set up with this season of The Mandalorian? Will it impact their desire to watch a show like The Acolyte, which is set before The Phantom Menace? And most importantly, if the show doesn't go back to what made it a success in the first place, will people come back for a fourth season of Mandalorian? And if not, what does that mean for Star Wars going forward?